Hey guys, welcome back to another TypeScript tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be talking about TypeScript comment flags. So you might have observed these. If you type a comment and then @ you're going to get these flags within the TypeScript file, and I'm just going to explain what each of them does. So TypeScript check, I'll save that one for the end because it's a bit different, but TypeScript expect error, well, what this does is if we write a line underneath this which we'd expect an error for, so let me just define a integer. Let's just set this to 3, and then if we try to set this integer to a string, we definitely expect an error here, right? Like if I get rid of this, we're expecting an error because you can't change a int into a string, especially not in TypeScript. But if we put TypeScript expect error here, then it's going to expect this line to throw an error, and if it doesn't, it's going to give us an error. So it's essentially inverting the errors, and this is going to be useful in certain situations. Like if you know something should give you an error, and then all of a sudden it stops giving you an error, then you can detect when it stops giving you an error and then fix it. And yeah, it's just useful in certain situations. So that's what this flag does. It just expects the error in the line underneath it. And yeah, I think you can go for as many lines as you want, but the second you put a valid line in between, then it just gets triggered. So it's basically checking the next valid line underneath and looking for an error. That's what TS expect error does. You'll see if I try and make this happen here, we're still going to get an error here. But if I use TS ignore, what that's going to do is essentially just ignore whatever's underneath this. So if this is valid, it's going to ignore it. If this is an invalid line, it's still just going to ignore it, and it's basically so that this never gives you an error. This can be useful for if some specific code is just always giving you an error, like in a module, and you can't fix it on yourself, but it still works perfectly fine. You can just use the TypeScript ignore flag, and it's just going to ignore it so you don't get those annoying errors. And finally, we have TS nocheck, and essentially this is like the ignore, but for the entire file. So you'll see if I get rid of all this stuff now, both of these are invalid lines, but because there's a TypeScript nocheck flag, this entire file is just not being type checked at all, and so it's just going to ignore any errors or anything that's happening in this file. So this line basically gets rid of all of the type checking in this entire file. So now for the TypeScript check, that's a bit different, and essentially what it does is it allows you to turn your JavaScript file into pseudo TypeScript files. So if we add a TS check at the beginning of this JavaScript file, now we're going to get sort of type checking within JavaScript. So let's say I do the same sort of example. Let's define an int to be 3, and then obviously if we change this to 2, that's completely valid. But if we try to make it a string, it now gives us an error, and you can see that's been thrown by TypeScript. If I remove this, and now this is just plain vanilla JavaScript, we can now do this again because JavaScript is a dynamic language, so we can change variable types. So yeah, this line basically lets you convert your JavaScript files into TypeScript files, although they're not going to be fully TypeScript. You're not going to get full, it's not going to be as good as if you just use a regular TypeScript file, just because it just isn't. Like if I try to do something like this, you can see we still can't do that because type annotations can only be used in actual TypeScript files like this. So yeah, this is just sort of turning your JavaScript file into a TypeScript file without actually doing it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and that was the TypeScript command flags explained. See you guys in a future tutorial. Bye.